ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We were having a few minor tech issues, but we're ready to go. Welcome. You are at the Rotary Club of Fort Worth downtown, and there's no better place to be. It is Cinco de Mayo. No, it is not Mexican Independence Day. Rather, it commemorates victory in the Battle of Puebla, a small skirmish in the Franco-Mexican War in 1862. I'll meet you later today for frozen margaritas, but now let's get started with our meeting. Invocation, past President Doug Briley, President and CEO of Warren Douglas Advertising, and at the keyboard, Henry Barbola, Vice President, Sierra Bank.
Would you bow your heads to pray with me? Heavenly Father and Holy God, we come to you today thankful for all you've so generously given us. It is a privilege to gather here today in freedom among friends and community leaders, and we acknowledge that every good and perfect gift comes from you. Bless the food we're enjoying today, and bless the generous and hardworking hands of the people who prepared it. May we be a blessing to you and those around us with the energy this food gives us. We ask for wisdom and discernment as we seek to lead our companies, our communities, and our families, and our personal lives in a pursuit of whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, lovely, whatever is admirable, anything excellent or praiseworthy. Help us to think on and pursue these things. Bless the work of our hands, Heavenly Father. Help us steward well all you've entrusted to us. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Amen.
Please be seated. Welcome to any guest who may be joining us from afar, whether it's Austin or Lubbock or here in Fort Worth or wherever our Rotarians may be traveling. We're delighted to have you here. Christina Judge, Manager of Business Development with M. Gale and Associates, is also going to help us recognize our visiting Rotarians and guests.
Thank you, Sean. Oh, wow. So I have been told that we have lots and lots of guests today. So to be respectful of your time, if you are a guest here or online, we welcome you. There are a few people that we would like to recognize. We have two city council members here today, Michael Crane and Jared Williams. We also have our district attorney, Phil Sorrells. And we also have several members of the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office. If you're right over here, would you please stand and wave? And while we're all VIPs here, if I've missed anybody, it's not my fault. Okay, thank you.
Now I would like to thank our sponsor for today's meeting. Don Boren Commercial Printing is your one-stop for printing from emails, faxes, and copies. From 1 page to 1,000 pages, custom print jobs like banners or business magnets for your work vehicle. Their designers can produce your marketing materials. By using efficient digital processing systems, they are able to offer cost-effective results for even the most demanding jobs. Thank you, Don Boren. I've already discussed Judge Sorrell's wife, Susan, is here today, and we are both 29 and holding, don't ever ask. She is a birthday girl, and we had some beautiful yellow roses that were delivered. What else? The yellow rose of Texas. This is Texas after all. And, you know, coincidentally, They signify a special tradition in our club that had reigned for almost 25 years. And this is our 110th anniversary. And so we've been, every meeting, just taking a quick minute to look back at a bygone tradition or a fun story within our club. So the year is 1963, and the club had the youngest president yet elected to that office, Frank Dunham, just 32. He said at the time he figured that record may stand for one simple reason. One old timer said at the conclusion of his year, "We won't make that mistake again." A hallmark of that year was when the adventuresome board agreed with Frank to change the recognition for the long-distance visitor at each Friday meeting. He says, we stopped giving cigarette lighters and fountain pens and introduced the Yellow Rose ceremony. The first Yellow Rose girl was Rotarian Mickey Goldman's daughter, Carol. Carol went on to marry Richard Meeker, also a prior Rotarian here in the club. You may know Carol and Richie, they still live here in town. There's a photo, I think, coming up. Mickey, when we find it, Mickey is in the center of the photo. It's coming. For the rest of his life, Mickey Goldman provided the weekly Yellow Rose boutonniere to his Rotary Club for this ceremony. Gordon Boswell and his son-in-law Felix Ankely continued the tradition thereafter, which also included a demure kiss on the cheek for the visitor. Rotarian Bob Jones good-heartedly recounts a typical encounter like this. On November 24th, 1967, during the reign of President Ed Keltner, one came among us, fairest of all the 300 present that day. Her name was Diane Stiegel, secretary to the personnel manager, Alcon Laboratories. And beholding her, all the men began to feel sorry for themselves, for they were from close by. And there was weeping and wailing and gnashing of dentures. There was one among them who had come from a far country, who was Thurston Gordon of Hollywood, California, and the Rotarians asked him to go forward and meet the Yellow Rose girl, that she might greet him and bring him good tidings of great joy. Our club was known far and wide among Rotary clubs for this special Fort Worth, Texas tradition, but alas, it's easy to see how this era eventually came to an end, spurred on by the 1987 Supreme Court ruling that admitted women to Rotary clubs across the nation. It was replaced by the equally unique long-distance Rotarian club tradition we now employ. Back in 1987, Rotarian and car dealer Jack Williams picked up the cost for gold-plated golf putters, a tradition continued to this day by his son, fellow Rotarian and U.S. Congressman Roger Williams. Roger will be with us, by the way, on June 9th. We hope you can join us. And while we don't have a long-distance Rotarian today, we do have a few club announcements. So Tran Trong, also a retired Alcon executive, if you could join me, he's our current Rotograph editor, and he's going to give us an update on last meeting notes and sponsors.
Thank you. Thank you, President Sean. You know, you probably noticed I'm sitting in the table that said Reserve Texas Tech alumni. So somebody said, Tran, I thought you went to University of Missouri at Rolla with same school as Wayne Carson. What happened? What happened is our club administrator, Aurora, sat me there, because if you had any part in the program, she'll sit you in front, so save you time getting up the podium. So, you know, I'm not betraying University of Missouri, okay? Okay, so first of all, I'd like you to join me in recognizing our distinguished sponsor again, my friend, Mr. Don Boren. And you know, I'll talk a little bit about, next slide, please. Yeah. About our sponsorship program. That's why, you know, we recognize Don today. And you know, interestingly, last week, we didn't think we were going to get any sponsors, and we had two. And one of them is a pioneer, and that's our friend, Reverend Johnson, George Johnson. He was the first nonprofit organization that sponsored us. And right after that, Wesley Gentle sponsor one of our meetings on behalf of Arts Fort Worth. So it's amazing. And then the other sponsor last week was Brandon Harrington, a brand new member. He sponsored on the same day that he was introduced as a new member. So we had a very good trend this year. We revived the program 4 years ago when we really had a need for that. So you're probably wondering, we have $1.5 million, $2 million in investment. Why do we have to get sponsorship that brings in only like $15,000, $20,000 a year? Why do you think so? Why don't we just, rather than giving the nonprofit $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 every spring, why don't we just use some of that to help our budget so that we don't have to increase membership dues? Why do you think so? And that's by law, we cannot dip into our endowment and children's funds. We have to raise it some other way, and that's why the importance of needing sponsorship. So some of the facts are up there, and it's a great advertising program. In that, Don, the best advertising program in town. For just a nominal fee of $500, you get, your company introduced to 100 or so of the most important opinion leaders in this town. Plus, past President Carlo has been posting our meeting on not only Facebook, but YouTube. So your advertising lives on forever, for that amount. And Don's been sponsoring now since we started 3.5 years ago, 15 times. And you can. And the only other person that could match Don was our other friend, Larry Anthony. Is Larry or Karen Anthony here today? All right. So we're not asking all of you to sponsor. Some of you don't own a company, you're not in a position to do that. But you can help with the effort by identifying potential sponsors, like Brandon Harrington, who just joined us. And my friend Pam Canal was saying she thought that Brandon is going to give Don a run for his money in terms of sponsorship, but okay. So much for sponsorship. So you can, contact me. I'll give the contact information later, and you can look at it in the membership roster as well. Or you just contact Aurora, and she'll steer you to me. So help being a sponsor or identifying sponsors or referring sponsors to us. So if we can go to the next slide, Tom. The next topic, okay, is how many of you have heard of the term LMN that President Sean introduced me to? That's the program we're recruiting right now. It's for people to become what we call chief correspondents or chief columnists for our last meeting notes program. We'll have more positions, but right now we're recruiting chairs for that function. A chair would recruit the columnists for the month. There'll be at 5 meetings or 3 meetings. The rest of May, there's only 2 left. So if you volunteer to be a chair, you don't have to write. You just recruit 3, 4, 5 people to write, and if you're a red badger, you can get a point for that. And if you write, you get another point towards your blue badge. So last but not least, the contact. You don't have to remember my contact information. I'm in the roster, but just contact Aurora and she'll steer you to me. So, okay, so much for the 2 minutes, President Sean. Thank you.
Thank you, Tran. I'm going to breeze through just a few more quick announcements. Crazy Pants. This is one of our club fundraisers, golf tournament coming up May 16th, Tuesday. That's at the Ridgely South Course. There are 2 ways to participate. You can, of course, be a golfer. There are 23 teams out there now. You can also come for the exhibition, be a what I guess we're calling it a fellowship ticket. And so we're figuring the event will end around 5:45 or 6, and there'll be heavy hors d'oeuvres and fun. And then Jamie Sadlowski, who's a Canadian pro and one of the longest drivers in the world, will be on hand and to converse and interface with. He is a multiple winner of the Remax World Long Drive Championship. So we'll all enjoy that. QR codes, and there'll be more information in the rotograph. We are participating. Crystal Galvan has particularly wanted us to participate in the PBR parade. This is their 30th anniversary for the World Finals coming up, and you will hear more about that on Saturday, May 20th. And there's also going to be another interface where we will need ambassadors to welcome the bull riding teams, I believe, from Mexico and Brazil. So stay tuned. That's also on the same day. Saturday, May 20th. And now we have a couple new member introductions. If I could have these folks join me at the stage. Rupa Iyer, proposer, Kim McQuistion, introduced by Mark Maurer, and Brian Golden, proposer, Don Click. Rupa and Mark, you take the stage. You know, new members are the lifeblood of our organization. We love it. Come on up. Don't forget, you have a buddy pass.
Thank you, President Sean. Dr. Rupa Iyer came to us last year during the RMBA and said she wanted to be a part of Rotary of Fort Worth, and I thought, well, it's not always working that easy, so it's fantastic. We're thrilled to have you. Like I said, Dr. McQuistion would have been here to introduce her. We're all colleagues at Tarleton, and she was brought to be the inaugural Vice President of Research, Innovation, and Economic Development. So coming originally from India, she came to the United States to pursue her doctoral work. Did so at Michigan State, where she met her husband, Shri, also an angel investor in Tech Fort Worth. So they're very involved in the community. They're proud parents of 3 boys, and when she's not working on a number of initiatives to raise money and bring in corporate partnerships for Tarleton State, she'll do some hiking, do some gardening, and enjoys visiting wineries. So we've all got that in common. So again, welcome, Dr. Rupa Iyer.
Thank you, Mark. So they asked me to say a fun fact about me, and I'm a nerd, so, I don't even get time to read, so I don't know what to say, but I thought about it, and the way I came here to the United States might be of interest to you. So I was born in India, as Mark just said, and, I was always interested in education, and my dad always supported that. And in India, at that time, many decades ago, you had an arranged marriage, your dad got you a groom and you said yes. So I finished my high school and he said, it's time for you to get married. And I said, can I pursue my bachelor's? He said, okay, very supportive. So when I was completing my bachelor's, he said, it's time to get married. Otherwise, you'll be a spinster and this will be a big black cloud on our family. So I said, okay, but I want to do this. I want to go to the United States and, do my PhD. And of course, he was shocked and surprised. He said, but wait, if you get a groom before I get admitted in a university in the United States with full financial aid, he gets me to marry off whoever he gets. But if I get that first, I get to go to the United States, right? So guess who won the bet? But my point in telling this story is not about us winning, but it's my dad and my mom, who were 30 years ago so forward-looking, sending their only unmarried daughter to the United States to be in a STEM degree. So I'm eternally grateful and had a fantastic opportunity here to do my PhD, meet my husband, a fantastic career, and now an opportunity to give to the community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Don Click, and this is my second new member this year. And Brian Golden, of course, is a past president of the Stockyards Rotary. He grew up all over Tarrant County, graduated from Trinity High School, and immediately entered into the Marine Corps from 1993 to 2000. Since 2001, Brian has been in the insurance restoration and disaster recovery business in various capacity. Brian has 5 children, ages from 24 to 4 years old. As I said, Brian is past president, and that was back in 2014. I was past president up there twice. And during his president, the club raised money for several scholarships, coordinated with Catholics in Action in the getting things done in their facilities and delivering smoke alarms. And finally, that was during the time they changed the name from the Fort Worth North to the Fort Worth Stockyards. So, new member, Brian Golden.
Thank you, Don. I'm not big on microphones. I did this when, as the president of the Stockyards Rotary Club, we hosted the district conference in the Stockyards. And I talked to all of our group. I said, I don't do microphones. They're like, oh, don't do it, don't do it. So I had to use a microphone. I got up there and I led with the joke. And it was like this, silent. The microphone was not on. And I couldn't tell if I was too loud or not enough. But a fun fact or interesting thing, oftentimes people ask me what led me to join the Marine Corps. And I did what every 18-year-old young man does. I asked my buddies, like, hey, what do you think? My dad was in the Army. He said, don't go Army, you won't like it. Good enough for me. Air Force didn't seem appealing. Navy, I did not want to go on a naval vessel, no offense. Yeah. And I said, what about the Marines? And I said, oh, don't do that. They're crazy. They'll brainwash you. It's the toughest one. I said, that's where I'm going. And then I found out Marines go on naval vessels. I was like, I should have done more research. But thank y'all for having me. Appreciate it.
And now let's get on to the main event. Chairman for the day is Randall Fluke, U.S. Immigration Judge, Executive Office of Immigration Review, Department of Justice. As in prior occasions, Randy Fluke has asked that I state his appearance is in his personal capacity and not on behalf of any government agency, spoken just like an attorney.
Our phrase of the day: what starts in Dimmitt, Texas, changes the world. Our esteemed speaker, the Honorable Chancellor Emeritus, Kent Ronald Hance, was born in 1942 in Dimmitt, Texas. Growing up, his father delivered mail for the U.S. Postal Service, and his mother and father brought him up to respect others, to have good moral character, and to be a good worker. And he's done that. Of course, he played sports, but he starred in basketball. And he was on the Dimmitt High School Powerhouse Fighting Bobcats basketball team that went all the way to state, twice. Yeah. From there, went to Texas Tech University, where he got his bachelor's in finance. He was president of his fraternity. He was vice president of the student body, and he was named to the prestigious Saddle Tramps. Then he went to the University of Texas at Austin and got his law degree. There he was president of the Student Bar Association and given the Council Award for his high honors there. In 1968, he returned to Lubbock, went to West Texas, started practicing law. He taught at the law school there. Then in 1974, he defeated an entrenched incumbent to become the state senator from West Texas. After serving a term there, he decided to go to the U.S. Congress. But in order to do that, he had to run against a up-and-coming young Texan who would later go on to be governor and president of the United States, and that was George W. Bush. In Congress, he was very effective. Two things worth noting. One, he carried President Reagan's tax cut, the largest tax cut ever. He also brought that West Texas civility to Congress, and couldn't we use a little of that now? At Texas Tech called him back home, this time as chancellor. And as chancellor during his 7.5-year tenure, he increased student enrollment by 45%, brought $1.2 billion to the university and started a new medical school in El Paso, Texas. And Rotarians, while he was in Lubbock, he was on the board of the local Rotary Club. He's been wise counsel to presidents, from President Reagan to every president of his party since, relied on by governors and for years in his knowledge of oil and gas law. He had been Texas Railroad Commissioner. And recently, he's returned, well, he started a new thing called a podcast called the Kent Hance, the Best Storyteller in Texas. And you need to go on, like, and subscribe. But if you do, you'll hear stories and insights, his phrase of the day. You'll hear about guests spanning from politics to government, all walks of life. And you'll learn, as I have, that people all over the country and all over the world know him by first name and have great respect for him. Chancellor Hance has had a positive impact not only on individuals, but on institutions and governments. He certainly, from Dimmitt, Texas, has changed the world for the better. So Rotarians, it's my honor to introduce my former Congressman, Snake Adams' hometown friend, and the best storyteller in Texas, Chancellor Emeritus, Kent Ronald Hance. Give us a guns up, Texas Tech.
Thank you very much, Judge. Judge got a little backlog, but you give him 2 weeks and he'll have a big backlog. Being an immigration judge, I mean, they're coming. You better be ready. First of all, my daughter Susan, who's been a delight, she showed up, almost 40 years ago and had this kid following her, and I thought, boy, will he ever amount to anything? I don't know. And Phil Soros has been a judge for 25 years and district attorney. He turned out great. He's the most organized person I know. And district attorney's office in good hands. My favorite Phil story is that when he was county court at law judge, he was setting bonds, and a kid came in one day with a T-shirt that said, and he was with somebody that was getting their bonds in. He was just there to watch. And the T-shirt said, "Wanted in all 50 states." Like all the women wanted him. And Phil told the bailiff, "Go get his driver's license." And they ran a background check, and he was not wanted in all 50 states. But he is wanted in one. He was arrested in the courtroom right there. Don't wear a smart aleck T-shirt to the courthouse, especially if you're going to be messing with him. I was with Kay Granger Tuesday, chairman of appropriations. In Texas, a chairman of appropriations from Fort Worth, chairman of small business, Roger Williams, chairman of the budget committee is Jody Arrington from Lubbock. And he was my chief of staff at Texas Tech when I was chancellor. My motto was him, push, push, push. If you don't push every day, then you won't get it done. You got to stay after them. And at education, they'll have committees. A committee is nothing more than a cul-de-sac for a good idea. It'll get down there and not get out. And so I pushed and we had what I thought was a lot of success and enjoyed it. I had a professor come see me. I've been there a week. This professor came see me. He said, "I'm not getting paid enough." I said, "I understand. I agree with you." And he said, "My office is old. My computer's out of date. My parking space is too far away." I said, "Dr. Patterson, I wish I had 100 just like you." He said, "Why?" I said, "Right now I've got 2,000 just like you." And the other thing I learned, I got up and I reached out and I pulled him out of that chair and got him out of there. And I told the assistant, "Provost, I'm not sure what the provost does, but from now on, provost talking to guys like that. We'll get that straightened out real fast. I don't need to be doing that." Something about Texas Tech is that Amon Carter and the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, it would never have happened if it hadn't been for them. Amon Carter was on the first board of regents at Texas Tech. 36% of the student body at Texas Tech comes from DFW, Metroplex. 36%. There's only 20% of the students live within 275 miles of Lubbock, Texas. Only 28%. More students travel a further distance to go to Texas Tech than any public university in the nation. I also want to mention that it looks like President Biden is going to name C.Q. Brown Jr., a real good friend of mine, a Texas Tech graduate, 2 degrees from Texas Tech. He will be the new chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He'll be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Trump named him chief of staff for the Air Force. There's a real small group that's been nominated by Trump and Biden. Real small, like one. That's a small group. And but he'll do a good job, and that and he's a good guy, and a distinguished alum from Texas Tech. But Tarleton, great school. Where did the lady from Tarleton go? Where'd she go? There. Hey, it's a great school. The first job John Sharp had when he got out of college was working for me. I was a state senator, and he's the chancellor at Texas A&M. For all of you Aggies, hullabaloo, connect, whatever that means. I like it. It means something. I called him. Governor Perry called me and said, hey, get Sharp to take the job at A&M. And I called him, talked to him, and I worked on him, and he took the job. And about once every 2 weeks, he'd call and he'd say, you didn't tell me about such and such. I said, well, you wouldn't have taken the job if I told you that. You don't think I'm going to tell you the bad things. And today I want to mention some of the unusual people I've served with, and I want to talk a little about politics and how it's changed. I picked out a couple, and I may add somebody as I go along. I served in the state senate with A.R. Babe Schwartz. He was from Galveston. He was a liberal Democrat. I was conservative, and we were friends. You know, Chuck Schumer and Dick Durbin, friends of mine. I tell Schumer, he has a constitutional right to be wrong, and he exercises it every day. I bump into him every once in a while. I see he still exercises. You are too. Schwartz was an assistant DA. He was 27 and working in Galveston, and he got a letter. And it said, Dear Mr. Schwartz, I'm going to kill you. And it was short and to the point, you know. Wonder what they mean, you know, I mean. So he went running to the sheriff's office, and he said, Sheriff, I got to get a gun. I've got to get a gun. And Sheriff said, why? And he said, look at this letter. Look at the letter. And Sheriff said, he's just trying to scare you. And he said, you're doing a good job. I got to get a gun. Finally, the sheriff gave in. And he said, okay, go over to this pawn shop across from the courthouse and get a revolver, get a .38 revolver. And I tell people, don't be around, that if you're not around guns or something, if you get a new gun, get a revolver, point and pull. Point at what you want to shoot and then pull the trigger. I mean, this is not brain, trust that you have to point and pull. So they told him that. And the sheriff said, now after, I'm going to clean this up a little. After, but use your imagination, it'll be funnier. After you get the gun, take it down to Billy's welding shop and have them file off the gun sight. And he said, the gun sight, he said, it looks like a little BB. It's the end of the barrel. He said, why would I do that? He said, that way when they take it away from you and stick it up your ear, it won't hurt so bad. I did clean it up. And Schwartz said, Sheriff, are you telling me I don't need a gun? Yeah, you don't need a gun. They never did shoot Schwartz. And the other, I served with Ralph Hall. And Ralph Hall was one of the nicest persons you'll ever meet. And he's the oldest person to ever served in the House. And he represented Rockwall and a lot of East Texas. And we were flying back and forth. We were both in Congress. We got off the plane, DFW, and we're walking down the concourse, and somebody yells, Congressman, Congressman. We both turned around. I didn't know the guy. And he started calling him a name, and he was patting him on the back. And he said, I want you to meet Congressman Hance. he's an up-and-coming guy, and he's a superstar. He's from Lubbock, and, you know, he always made you feel good. One time, John McCain, who is a good friend of mine, talking about Bill Clinton, introduced him. He said he lied the whole introduction, but it's so good I enjoyed it. So there's Bill. But he said, introduced me, and he was talking, he said, this guy's my next door neighbor for 10 years. The guy said, 12 years. I lived there 12 years next door to you before I moved to California. And Ralph said, God, I forgot to ask, how's that beautiful, charming, vivacious, cute, intelligent little wife? This old boy said, I divorced her about 6 months ago. And he said, you better off without her. You know, he never missed a lick. I mean, he grabbed it and just took off and kept on going. And I'm over there biting my tongue. We get through and we walk off, and I said, Ralph, you use every adjective known to mankind, and then you told me he's better off without. And he said, well, you got to make him feel good. You got to make him feel good. and Ralph was always good at making him feel good. And he was a good member of Congress, The changes, I think back, Phil Graham and I were elected the same year as conservative Democrats. So when Reagan got elected, Reagan called us, and I went down to the White House and met with him. And the Republicans controlled the Senate, but the Democrats controlled the House. So Reagan had to have a Democrat out front on his bills. And so I carried the tax cuts, his largest tax cuts in the history of the country, despite somebody since then said they had the largest. They were close, but they're not that close. You can guess who it was. But anyway, I carried the tax cut, and Phil Graham carried the budget cuts. And so we had to have some Democrats vote for the bill, and I got 78 Democrats to vote for Reagan's bill. You couldn't do that in this day and time. I mean, it's just so partisan and just mean. And I got a call one day, and Jimmy Baker, who was chief of staff, by the way, Jimmy Baker, I teach a course in leadership at Texas Tech. When I was chancellor, I was teaching it, and a kid came up one day and said, my granddaddy's a real good friend of yours. And I said, who? He said, James Baker. And I said, James A. Baker? I said, yeah. I said, you should have told me you was in this class. And I called Baker, and he said, he calls me every Monday and tells me every story you told him. And he said, about 2/3 of them I've heard. And I said, I'm recycling. And so Baker, I said, by the way, when Coulter graduates, I want you to come speak. You know, he's a good graduation speaker. And he did, but he said, look, what if something happens and I get out there and he doesn't graduate? I said, Jimmy, if you're out here giving a graduation speech, he'll have on a cap and gown. It'll look like he graduated. So, okay. He came out, the kid graduated, and he's doing great. You know, he's doing great. But Jimmy Baker called and said, President wants you to get some other conservative Democrats, bring them down here. We need to work on them, try to get their vote. So I took 7 down, and we go in. Reagan was so good. He just made you feel like you were the only person around. And Clinton was pretty good at it. But Reagan was really good at it. And he said, here, let's have some jelly beans. I hate jelly beans. And he got his little scoop, and, you know, we had a little napkin, and so I ate them, got them out of the way, and Reagan goes, Congressman, my hand's already out of jelly beans. And he got me some more. I didn't eat them real fast that second time, I learned. So he looks at Breaux, Congressman John Breaux from Louisiana, and Congressman Billy Tozan from Louisiana, and he said, I got 72% of the vote in Louisiana. Y'all got to be helping me. You got to vote for my tax bill. And Breaux said, we'd like to. And he said, why aren't you? He said, well, you're going to lift the tariffs on sugar coming in the United States, and it's going to kill my sugarcane farmers. Reagan, despite Reagan could cut a deal. He understood. And despite, the press always tried like he was dumb or didn't know what was going on or whatever. Reagan said, well, if I don't do that, will you vote for it? And he said, sure. They just shook hands, had a deal. And he said, what about you, Billy? Billy said, okay. So he picked up 2 votes right there. Now look, the tax cut was for everyone in the nation. The sugar thing was a fight between the soda pop people and the sugar farmers. They could put that off a little. Graham said, I just hate that. I said, I do too, but let's do it. Don't worry about it. Look at the big picture, stay focused. And we did, and we passed it, but we had a press conference. Baker wanted to have 6 of the 7 that went down there committed. And so I took those 6 with me out on the west portico, and we had a press conference. The guy that didn't commit, he left. He had to go out the back door. And we go out there, and I get up and say, we've announced today where they've picked up 6 more Democrats to vote for Reagan's tax cut. And I went through that and everything and said, are there any questions? Sam Donaldson, who was meaner than a junkyard dog, tough guy. He said, I've got a question for Congressman Bro. Congressman Bro, why are you voting for this tax cut for the rich? Anytime the press refers to any tax cut, it's a tax cut for the rich. It may include people that make $25,000, but it's a tax cut for the rich. He said, why are you doing this tax cut for the rich? And Bro said, I knew he was going to say it's good for the country. Bro said, the president's not going to lift those tariffs on the sugar coming in, so my sugar cane farmers can stay in business. And Sam Donaldson said, Congressman, did you sell your vote? And Bro said, nope, I just rented it out for a while. And I said, that's not going to work. He'll get defeated. I didn't know Louisiana politics. They went, that is smart. He didn't sell it. He still got it. He just rented it out. He not only got reelected, and then he went on to serve 3 terms for a total of 18 years in the U.S. Senate. Was very effective. Billy Tozan went on to change parties, become a Republican, and served as chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee. So they were very effective. The other thing about Reagan, he sent me to Camp David one weekend, and if you ever get a chance, go. I mean, that's not a bad deal. And they've got a 3-hole golf course there, and there's 3 ways to get to each hole. And but it's nice. It's nice. And he took care of you. And family, we sat in the president's box at the Kennedy Center, and then one day I was back in Lubbock for the August break, and I get a call, and it was President Reagan, and he had read in the Washington Post that Chairman Rostenkowski, who was chairman of Ways and Means, was so mad at me that the Ways and Means Committee was going to China, and they took me off the trip. And so President Reagan said, Congressman, I saw you got penalized for that, and I feel bad about it. And I said, I'm fine, He said, I'm going to appoint you. Chief Justice Warren Burger's going to China for me on Air Force 2. Would you like to go and be co-chair? Yeah. No, I said, yes. One of those quick, yes. And that, it's like your spouse asks, do I look good in this? Yes. Answer those questions, answer them fast. And so I went to China, and we were over at the same time as the committee, and Deng Xiaoping met with me and Berger, but he refused to meet with the Ways and Means Committee. Reagan took care of it. He was good at that. The big change in politics is the lack of civility. There were people that I totally disagreed with, I got along with, and that were friends of mine, and I could disagree without being disagreeable. What's changed is we didn't have the cable networks, and with CNN, MSNBC, and Fox, to get on, you got to say something pretty sensational and it's got to be kind of partisan. And so that's made it tougher. And then the states in their redistricting, they've made it tough in that there's not that many swing districts. There's 435 members of Congress, and there's less than 50, probably about 40, that are swing districts that can be elected by a Republican or a Democrat. All the other districts, if you're a Republican, you could get beat from the right. If you're a Democrat, you get beat from the left. So everybody moves further away, and it's hard to compromise. And also what you say. You know, Reagan got mad at Tip O'Neill one time. Somebody viciously attacked him by saying, "The gentleman is ill-advised." He's pretty good. Now, we've seen not just a few years ago where a speaker referred to the president as a morbidly obese idiot, and he called her a loon. Had a word in front of loon. Reagan and Tip O'Neill would sit down at night and work out differences. And they'd tell Irish jokes and stories, and they got along fine. They disagreed some, and they'd come out and say, you know, the other side's wrong, some things like that. But they had some civility, and it's hard to do things. And the partisanship is such that if you're a Democrat, you can't get a Republican vote. If you're a Republican, you can't get a Democrat vote. Republicans only got 4. They barely passed the budget last week. They had to change some things that they didn't want to do about Iowa to pick up those 4 votes in Iowa. You know, one of the things that Phil Graham and I figured out real fast, that we were the swing vote, and you could get a lot of things done. And they were very responsive. This is still a great country, and that I've enjoyed, you know, my career. I've done a little everything. I've seen a lot of things and met a lot of nice people, and that this is, you know, people just get down on everything, and we've got a lot of problems, but there's problems that the right people at the right time can always solve. So I just wanted to tell you, save a little time, but this is for any questions. Anybody got any of those questions that you want to ask? Or yes, sir. A question: have you ever? This goes back to my podcast. In Dimmitt on Tuesday night was National Enquirer night at the VFW. They'd drink beer and read the National Enquirer. And there wasn't a lot to do in Dimmitt growing up. And they had a deal, and my friend Snake Adams quit school in the 9th grade, and they read a story that there was a guy in Kansas, a UFO flying saucer landed and got him and took him to Miami, New York, Seattle, LA, and back to Kansas in less than an hour. And so they go around and talk about it, and they asked Snake Adams, said, have you ever been? Snake said, look, I've never seen a UFO, much less go riding in one. And someday I may see one and I may go riding one, but I'll be a son of a gun if I ever tell anybody. Snakes also, they were at the VFW when the men landed on the moon, and they were all just marveling. And Snake said, I've been there. And they said, you hadn't been to the moon. He said, that's not the moon. It's between Farmington and Gallup. And somebody said, by God, it does look like Farmington and Gallup. He always thought wrestling was real and that landing on the moon was fake. But any other questions? Well, yes.
Chancellor Hans, I've twice comments on family legacy, who has the longest.
Oh yeah, I had that. You know, this is good. My son-in-law, Phil Soros, your district attorney, his grandparents moved from Odessa to Lubbock. They had 8 children, and they started in 1952. All 8 went to Texas Tech. Even now, they've got somebody there every fall and spring semester for 71 years. They've had someone as a full-time student at Texas Tech. Boy, that's come as a record of people that didn't have an education. they could foresee what that could do for them. It's a great country. You know, people, I mean, they just do things that you wouldn't have an opportunity any other place. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Back over there.
Yeah, the NFL, one of the best quarterbacks is a Texas Tech alumni. How's the Tech football team going to do?
They're going to be good. We have a good coach, and I think it'd be good. I went to see Mahomes when he was in high school. I met with him and his mother, Cliff Kingsbury, and I went down there, and we met with them. And she was mad at the University of Texas. They had offered him a preferred walk-on to come to the University of Texas. Preferred walk-on. Somebody a little dumb in that group. A&M wanted him to be a defensive back. OU wanted to make him a receiver, and LSU wanted to make him a receiver. And she said, Northwest Louisiana and Texas Tech are the only ones that say that they're going to play him at quarterback. And Kingsbury said, and Kingsbury's a good friend of mine, Kingsbury said, I coached the quarterbacks year before last at A&M, and Johnny Football won the Heisman, and your son is better. I went, God, I just knew that lightning was going to get us. You know, you just should, thou shalt not bear false witness. And, but Cliff Kingsbury was right. And she looked at me and she said, what if they try to move him from quarterback? What are you going to do? And I said, I'll fire him. And she said, I like this guy. I like this guy. And we got him. I saw him play. Baker Mayfield got beat out, and that's the reason Baker Mayfield went to OU and won the Heisman Trophy. But when Baker Mayfield was a senior and Mahomes was junior, they played in Lubbock, and OU won 66-59, and it was one of the most exciting games. It just, I mean, it was incredible. I apologize if I've gone over, but nobody ever complains. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Right on cue, we've got those Red Raider colors. Chancellor Hance, what a privilege, what an honor to have you with us today, sir. You know, as a program chairman here in the club, we kind of have a formula. We look for leaders, issues, community, and the occasional legend. That legend category is hard to fill, but you, sir, have done it today. What a privilege. You're one of a kind. I would say you're a national treasure, but I'm so glad you're all ours right here in Texas.
Thank you.
It is a tradition of the Rotary Club of Fort Worth that we make a donation in the name of each speaker. Right now, we're doing that to the Rotary International Polio Plus Fund. And there's a memento of that donation here for you. Thank you so much. You know, this is one of those meetings, I wish we had a few more hours to go. And there's a stump the chancellor list of questions on the table. So, sir, you now have your own Jeopardy category. That is an accomplishment. And I wanted to also note, we talked about a good handful of our universities, Tarleton, of course, Texas Tech, A&M. We do have Daniel Pullen, president of TCU, here today. Thank you for joining us. And I want to... Of course, I want to thank Chancellor Hance once again, Judge Sorrells, it's a pleasure, Susan, and our folks from the DA's office, thank you all for joining us. Long distance Rotarian, it turns out we have one, Jeff Breland, he's a guest of Ryan Jodish from Modesto, California. Please join me up here for a gold-plated golf putter. So just to wrap it up quickly, Crazy Pants coming up, PBR 30th Parade, the district conference. Next week's speaker is Cullum Clark. He's an economist, director of the Bush Institute, SMU Economic Growth Initiative. He has written a book in the recent few years, The Texas Triangle and Its Emerging Power in the Global Economy. And with that, it's margaritas today, mint juleps tomorrow. What a big weekend. Mayfest here at home, Kentucky Derby, or drop into London for the coronation. This meeting is adjourned.